Okay, we are starting chapter 2, section 1, solving equations with rational, let's see, what was the whole title here? With rational coefficients is what we wanted. Sorry, I was just cutting off the title there. I wanted the rest of it. Whoop. Dang it. Okay. This is for Math 8, so we want to make sure we're in the right math class there. As always, this is just some basic information for the homework page that it starts off with. You'll have a due date on the front here. It doesn't show me that because this is the teacher preview, so I don't have a due date on mine, but you will on yours. You always have unlimited retakes, so you can come in here and try this as many times as you would like. This particular question only has 5 questions on it. The grading policy is always set at best score, so whichever one of your attempts is your best score is the one you get to keep. And we have it set for partial credit, meaning if you answer one of the 5 questions, you get credit for that one question. Once you start your homework, please remember to click that Submit Assignment button in the bottom right corner, or it will lock you out of every other assignment. So make sure, even if you've only answered one of 5 questions, click the Submit button. You can come back and try again later. So don't just leave your assignments. Make sure you click that button. All right. All of the homework assignments have at least these 3 buttons available. So explanation will explain this exact problem to you. So you lose the attempt on this one because it gives you the answer. So it'll give you a red X on there, and you're going to have to come back and try it again later on like your second attempt or whatever attempt you're on. If you want just an explanation, or not explanation, sorry, an example, then you click on the example page. It opens up a different example. It'll walk you through that example, and you can go, okay, I'm good, I understand that. Maybe you came back out here and you want another example. If you click on it again, it'll give you a new example. So it's kind of cool. It'll keep giving you new examples. Message center, just so that you can message your teacher, directly with this problem attached. Okay, so let's go ahead and complete some problems here. So we're going to solve for V. So this is a little bit of review of things that we've done in the past. So when we're solving for a variable, we're always trying to isolate it, meaning get it by itself. So if I want to get this variable by itself, I'm going to look at what is being done to the variable. So in this case, I'm multiplying by a fraction. And remember, fractions mean I'm multiplying on top, I'm dividing on bottom. That's the basic idea. I'm actually doing both multiplication and division here. So to undo or do the opposite operation of a fraction, I actually want to do multiplication by the reciprocal. Because remember, this is multiplying by 5, now I'm dividing by 5. This is dividing by 6, now I'm multiplying by 6. So I want to make sure I do this on both sides here. So 5 divided by 5 cancels down to 1s. 6 divided by 6 also cancels down to 1s. So I'm left with a V on the right side there. On the left side here, I need to make sure I do my multiplication. So we want to multiply across the top here. So 6 times 30, and that would give us, 180. 6 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. And then don't forget, we do need to divide by 5. You can do some cross-canceling if you understand that concept already. I'm not quite explaining it here, but 30 and 5 could cross-cancel. So you could kind of cancel out a little early. But this divides nicely, so it's not really too big a deal. So we want to go through and divide 180 by 5. So we can go into 18 3 times. The closest I would get would be 15. That would leave me 3 left over. So I can actually show you what I'm doing. I'm kind of doing this division in my head. So I said for 18, the closest I can get is 15, right? And that's 3 times there. And then that would leave me with 30. So I can go evenly into 30 6 times like that, right? So then I would have nothing left over. So 36 equals V. So this is just kind of a quick review in solving. I don't need a fraction. What did I do that for? So I just want to type in 36. And it doesn't matter that my answer says 36 equals V and their answer says V equals 36. It means exactly the same thing. I can flip-flop that. It's a symmetric property. It's not going to hurt anything at all. It still means the same thing. Okay, let's go ahead and erase this because I took up a bunch of room there. All right, so now we have negative 3/4 x equals 9. So same thing, we're multiplying by a fraction. So we're going to multiply by its reciprocal. And make sure you take the negative also, because we don't want to leave the negative behind. So 4, oops, didn't mean to grab the edge there. 4 divided by 4 turns into 1s. 3 divided by 3 turns into 1s. And the negatives also cancel. Negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm just left with x on this side, because otherwise it's a bunch of 1s. So over here I want to go 9 times negative 4. And we end up with negative 36 divided by 3. So if I divide this one is a little easier to do without having to write the long division. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And it'll be negative. So again, just to practice in what's happening to the variable. And in this case, we're kind of heavily practicing fractions. If I'm multiplying by a fraction, in order to move that fraction to the other side, I needed to multiply by its reciprocal so that it completely cancels out on the variable side. All right. Ooh, zoom out. I didn't mean to click that. Okay, so now we're going to solve for w, and we're doing something a little different. So this is actually still a fraction, but now we have w divided by 5. All right, well, since w, the variable, is being divided by 5, I need to do the opposite operation, which is multiplication. Because 5 divided by 5 cancels out. It becomes 1 and 1, just like in those other ones. And w is left by itself. So now we need to multiply. And if you're going to do this, you actually can do this on paper like this. You ignore the decimal for a minute. You go 5 times 5 is 25, 10, 11, 12, 5, 6. So you multiply just like normal and say, okay, there's one decimal place here, so I'm going to put it back here. So it's 62.5. So you can do this. You are welcome to use a calculator. I know it's not available on here, but you can always use a calculator outside of the program if you need to. So 62.5, check. All right. Continue. 2 more and then we'll be done with this guy here. So a book sold 34,200 copies in its first month of release. Suppose this represents 9.2% of the number of copies sold to date. How many copies have been sold to date? So we know that this many books sold in the very first week. And that's only 9.2% of the copies. So this is actually going back to a, well, it's actually going forward a little bit. We haven't covered the percentage section quite yet. So we'll go ahead and cover it now, because I believe that's going to be a little bit farther into chapter 2. So the way you do this one is you say it's percent of a number. Whenever we hear a number, it's either going to be a variable, but this is also the total. Is, and I like to say part, or you can say is what. So actually I'll change that. Is what, and that's kind of a question we can ask, and this is the part. So in this situation, we have 34,200 books have sold in the first month of release, but that only represents a small percentage of what's been sold to date. So that's not our total, this is our part. So this is going to be the 34,200 on the end, the part. When I hear the word is, I know that that's an equal sign. A number, which that's our total, we don't know what our total is, so I'm just going to put X for a number. It could be any variable you want. Of means times, and our percentage, they told us that it's 9.2. Remember 9.2%? We actually want to convert that to a decimal when we put it into an equation. So we wanted to say 0.092 like this. All right, so we have our little equation built. And this is something we're going to practice quite a bit more in the future here. I want to say it's probably in next week's sections, actually, when we start practicing this formula. So it's percent of a number is what? And if we can remember this, then we can fill it out, because we go percent of a number is what? So total and part. All right, so in order to solve this, we say what's being done to the variable? It's being multiplied by this decimal. So we're going to divide both sides by this decimal. And we're going to end up with a pretty big number here. Any number divided by itself cancels. Doesn't matter how funky or small the number looks. Any number divided by itself cancels out. So let's go ahead and look at this one. And they do give us a calculator, because this one's going to have a pretty decently large number here. Oops. Oh, I could have hit undo. Just so notice that. I forgot the 2, undo. Divided by 0.092. Equals. Okay. I want to make sure I didn't do that wrong. Let's see. 34,200 divided by 0.092 equals. And it says round your answer to the nearest whole number. So they do understand we're going to end up with a decimal, and they want us to round to the whole number. So here it is. We want to make sure we look at this 1. Since it's 4 or less, we're only going to type in this number here. So we have 37,1739. So we need to make sure we put our commas in here. So it's 371,739 copies have been sold. All right, one more of these. And we have DeAndre needs to memorize words on a vocabulary list for Korean class. He has memorized 12 of the words, which is 2/3 of the list. How many words are on the list? So we can actually use the same method we just used. Instead of percent, it's a fraction, but it'll still work the same way. So I can say percent or fraction of a number. We don't know how long the list is. We know he's only memorized 12 of them, though. So remember, it's total and part. So you always want to make sure those go in the right place here, because otherwise that's going to definitely mess you up. So this looks a lot like a problem that we had at the beginning of like number 1 and number 2. We're multiplying by a fraction on the variable. So in order to undo this, we do the reciprocal like that. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3 halves. 3 divided by 3 turns into 1s. 2 divided by 2 turns into 1s. So we just have x on this side. So then we go 12 times 3. So we get 6 and 3. Don't forget that we have a divide by 2 here. So x equals 36 divided by 2. So if we actually wrote this out, scooch this back up again. Not the square root. Divided by 2. So it would go in ones here. 16. And it would go in 8 times there. And that's the whole piece, right? So we have 18. So the whole list is 18 words long. So with this one, we just want to make sure we're paying attention to the wording. And I know I did 2/3 instead of a percentage, but we could actually make this a percentage. This would be 66% if we actually divided this out. So a fraction works just as well as a percentage in this case. All right, let's go ahead and check. And we're good to go. All right, so that was the end of section 1. I will see you in section 2.